First, I have such deep, profound respect and love for Rabbi Moshe Nair. He is an international hero. And I love his commitment to the Jewish faith and how he is always doing everything he can for the Jewish community, and how he believes in the principle of increasing the size of the Jewish population whenever he can. And he is doing it to an extraordinary extent. We all respect your commitment, your dedication to Judaism, and we congratulate you and Simi on the upcoming member of the newest member of the congregation. Let's give him a round of applause. The primary was a shock to me. I never saw it coming, frankly, and I lost, and it's embarrassing to lose, and it hurts to lose, and the way it happened was even worse, because all the polls had me up 15 points. All the geniuses say, you know, you're up 15 points, you want to play it safe, and he was nowhere on the radar screen. Mamdani, just nowhere on the radar screen. So we played it safe. I didn't engage him. I didn't debunk him enough. I wasn't aggressive enough, which is really ironic because all my life I'm too aggressive, I'm too combative, I'm too tough. And then on election day, there was an historic turnout that nobody's ever seen anything like. There was an explosion of the under 30 vote. Under 30 white socialists who voted 3, 4, 5 times what anyone had ever seen. And that totally changed the numbers. There were about 100,000 young under 30 who had never voted before. I lost by 100,000 votes, 400,000 to 500,000. The young people who came out, they were socialists, and they were pro-Palestinian. And I would wager that in that primary, more than 50% of the Jewish people voted for Mandami. More than 50%. Because with those young people, the under 30 people, they are pro-Palestinian, and they don't consider it being anti-Israel. I am, as you know, 100% supporter of Israel. We have the largest Jewish population outside of Israel, and I was proud to be the strongest advocate. Many, especially younger people, don't consider saying anti-Israel is different than being anti-Semitic. Being anti-Israel to them means anti-Bibi's policies, anti-Israel government policies. And they are. And they are. And they were highly motivated, and they came out to vote. And that totally distorted what was expected. And in many ways, it was a national wave that has been building. This socialist wave in the Democratic Party, this AOC, Bernie Sanders going across the country, the No Kings, brought out hundreds of thousands of young people at rallies all across the country, basically fueled by anti-Trump. But anti-Trump then fits with socialism, then fits with pro-Palestinian, and he was the perfect vehicle for this under 30 wave of reform and a new reality. What happened in the primary? He is now on the Democratic line, so you will see the traditional Democratic institutions will now support him because that's what they do. The Democratic institutions, if you're on the Democratic line, so the unions, etc., will support him. And he will get votes just being on the Democratic line. I don't believe he will get the votes he thinks he gets, because this is not going to be the primary. Now he's going to be exposed for who he is. And let's discuss how realistic socialism is as a form of government for New York City. How are you going to have a socialist city in a capitalist state and a capitalist nation? How are you going to be anti-business in New York City, which is all about business? Yeah. We're the finance capital, we're the business capital, and you're going to be anti-business. You're going to be anti-public safety. You want to dismantle the police, you want to defund the police, you want to deconstruct jails, where people are petrified to walk around the streets. So once his philosophy is exposed, and the impossibility of what he proposes, I don't believe he's going to get the support that he had in the primary. But it has to be exposed. But there's no doubt, the rabbi's question, if you split the vote too many ways, then Mamdani has an advantage. And if it's me and Curtis Sliwa and Eric Adams, then he has an advantage. Governor Patterson came up with what I believe is the smartest proposal. Every candidate says this is an existential threat, Mamdani, right? Socialism plus fueling anti-Semitism. People ask me, is he anti-Semitic? That requires an insight that nobody can make. You know, what does somebody have in their heart? Does somebody have the capacity to see into their heart? But I can tell you this, he fuels anti-Semitism. When you glorify Hamas, you are fueling anti-Semitism. When you are praising Hamas, you're fueling anti-Semitism. When you're saying globalized intifada, and you know what that means to the Jewish community, and you refuse to condemn that statement, and you say, well, I will discourage people from saying it. What does that mean, discourage people? That's a wink and a nod. I discourage people from saying, no, you should condemn people from saying it. That's hateful speech. You should condemn people. But when you are fueling anti-Semitism, when you're that divisive a force in this city, which is all about tolerance, right? During COVID, they attacked Asians on the street because Donald Trump was calling it the China virus, the China virus, the China virus. So we had a wave of attacks on Asian people. We're not going to attack Asian people because of COVID and the China virus. The only way New York works is if we are tolerant and we're bringing people together and we're healing. You're people from all over the globe. You can't start dividing one across the other. And this is just another example of division. But no doubt if you split the vote, it's problematic. Governor Patterson put forth a proposal, which was put forth first by another candidate in the race, where he said, look, if everybody believes what they say, that Mamdani is an existential threat, and it's bigger than my candidacy or Eric Adams' candidacy, which it is, and it's bigger than my ego or Eric Adams' ego, then in September, let's find out who's the strongest candidate, run the strongest candidate, the other person defers. That is I believe I'm going to be the strongest candidate. I believe Eric Adams, who I know many, many years, and we have to remember reality here. Back in April, 70% of New Yorkers said they would not re-elect Eric Adams because of the condition of the city, because of the corruption, etc. That was April. That was before the mayor himself was charged with a crime. That was before Trump pardoned him, although Trump didn't pardon him. Trump is a classic, right? January 6th, people who were charged with crimes on January 6th, he gave them a pardon, said go home. What he did with Eric Adams is, he said, I will drop the charges so that Eric Adams can cooperate with my policies as mayor, and if he doesn't cooperate, then we can bring the charges back, right? So it was conditioned on the mayor's cooperation with Trump, which Democrats found very, very effective. Eric Adams then turned off the Democrats. That's why he didn't run in the Democratic primary, because he was not competitive in the Democratic primary. You can't win without Democratic support. In the general election, Democrats are 70% of the vote. 70%. Republicans about 15, independents about 15. Those are the numbers. And you can't win without Democratic support. I lost by about 100,000 votes. That's about 2% in the general election. And I can make up that 2%. That 100,000 is the exact number of the under 30. So I believe that I'm going to be the stronger candidate. Every poll now has me the stronger candidate. Every poll has Eric running behind Curtis Sliwa, who's the Republican. Curtis Sliwa is a Republican. He says he's going to stay in the race. But again, in September, will be about a month from the election when early voting starts. And then I think the Republican Party and the Republican leaders have to go to a Curtis Sliwa if he's not the strongest candidate, which I don't believe he's going to be, and say, it's bigger than you. It's not about you. It's about stopping the existential threat. But that's the way we do it, right? We have put the strongest candidate forward, and one-on-one, there's a poll in Forbes today that says one-on-one, I beat Mamdani by 15 points. One-on-one, I believe, if I'm not in this race, we're going to have this mayor, and I don't think the city survives the way we know it with this mayor. Okay, so knock me on my tuchus, I got it. My grandfather used to say, you get up, you dust yourself off, and you learn from what happened, and you go forward. And I'm going forward. I also physically wasn't out there enough. What they call retail, and that I've already started correcting everywhere, every borough, every community. And I'm going to do that every day between now and Election Day. So
your messaging,
Right.
how will that change?
yeah, I was not positive and negative, right? On the negative, I did not debunk his argument enough, and that everything free I didn't challenge, because I didn't think people were really going to take that seriously, but his voters do. So I'm going to be more aggressive in debunking his message, and more aggressive in my message, which is the affirmative vision of what New York can be. Because see, I really believe we're at a crossroad, and we're going to go one way or the other. We either go up or we go down. And if we elect him, I think we're going to have a decline that we will not get past for 15, 20 years. Because this has been growing. We haven't had a good mayor for 12 years since Bloomberg.
Yes.
And we've had 12 years of incompetent mayors. You add another 4 years of this socialist mayor, that'll be 16 years. We'll be in a hole that we're not going to get ourselves out of, literally, I believe, for the rest of my lifetime. I believe that's how damaging it can be. We're already losing people from New York City. They're leaving. They're leaving. And many others are just on the precipice. Should I go? Should I not go? Highest taxes in the United States, and then I'm afraid to walk down the street. What am I even paying for? Right? And if he comes in, increases taxes on the rich even more, dismantle the police, So public safety gets worse, the city declines. I believe in the inverse.
Prices go down.
I believe we have an opportunity in New York because cities all across the country are failing. Cities across the globe are failing. Think about it. Post-COVID, liberal leadership in a lot of these cities, they're unlivable. Go to Los Angeles, go to San Francisco, go to Chicago, go to London, go to Paris. There's a window of opportunity for the city that actually is livable and is actually improving. And we can do what we need to do in New York. You know, it's not that hard. We did it all before. Public safety. Hire more police. I want to hire 5,000 police. Takes you back to where we were with Dinkins Giuliani level. And let people feel safe. You have mentally ill homeless people on the street. Why? Who does that serve? Well, we're protecting their civil rights. No, you're not. The person is dangerously mentally ill. Any sense of humanity would say, get the person the help they need. Don't leave them on the street to put themselves in danger and endanger the public. And that's what we did for 40 years. Affordability is a problem. Yes, because we're not building enough housing. We have a 1% vacancy rate. 1%. They say you're in a state of emergency in housing until you're at a 5% vacancy rate. When you're at 1%, there's no market supply and demand. And we're not building housing. Why? Because the city government is broken and dysfunctional and nobody wants to do business with it. It can take you 4 years to get a building permit. A building permit in New York City. I built LaGuardia Airport in 4 years. Right? And then get back to attracting businesses to New York. Business is not the enemy. Business is your friend. Business creates jobs. That's opportunity. That's hope. That brings more young people into New York. And that's in the virtuous cycle where the young talent comes to New York to go to the businesses, and the businesses come to New York to make themselves available to the young talent. This socialist mentality is the exact opposite. I did a project, I worked for a year. Amazon had a national competition for their headquarters. 15,000 jobs, $150,000. I worked for a year to win that competition. And it was hard because you're at states offering them free taxes forever. Free income taxes forever. New York, we have a terrible tax burden. We won the competition because I said to Amazon, we have something that nobody else can offer. We have the talent here. The young people want to come to New York. And that is oxygen for Amazon. You can't live without our talent. And we win. And the socialists organize and stop the project. Because they're anti-business, they're anti-corporation. And Amazon went to another state. I mean, that mentality has to change. If Amazon had come, we would have jump-started that entire tech community. And by the way, they were going to Queens. I'm from Queens. But it's harder to get somebody to go to Queens than to Manhattan. They were going to Queens, to Long Island City, on a site that had been vacant since my father was governor. It was craziness to lose it. And we have to change that.
I just want to make a comment on some of the messaging. I heard very similar messaging from Governor Hochul on the globalize the Intifada. So I just wanted to give you my perspective, which I hope you find helpful. The Intifada was a purposeful campaign by both Arafat's people and the radical Islamists to murder civilian Jews. When the radical Islamists adopted that phrase and then it swept through college campuses, The meaning of globalize the Intifada is murder Jews all over the world wherever you find them. Jewish people don't find that hurtful. It's not hurtful. If you say to me, David, you're ugly, that's hurtful. If you say to me, David, you're a crappy insurance broker, that's hurtful. If you say to me, you don't come to shul enough, you're a bad Jew, that's hurtful. But if you say, David, I want all of the people who are listening to me right now to murder you, that's incitement to murder. And there's a big difference between hurtful and incitement to murder. And I just want to make sure that messaging, because Governor Hochul framed it the same way. Geez, the Jewish people find that hurtful. It's really not nice to say that. Please stop it. And he plays into it by saying, well, I'm going to discourage people from saying such hurtful things.
He knows it means kill Jews. Everybody knows that. Everybody knows that. He knew what he was saying when he praised Hamas. You praise Hamas. That's not a political position. Hamas are terrorists. He knew what he was saying October 8th, the next day, when he stood up and supported what happened. He knows what he's saying when he says, Palestine is a core issue for me. He's been doing this. He's been on the college campuses. He organized the college campus demonstrations. He organized the rallies. He believes this. He believes it. And he doesn't want to repudiate it. And that's why he said, I understand, people can have different interpretations, and I discourage it. You're right, you can't have a different interpretation of kill the Jews. There are no two interpretations of that.
What will you do for the Jewish community if you are elected mayor? What will you do for the Jewish community in New York?
I am going to go to as many synagogues as I can go to temples, yeshivas, etc. I will do my part. I'm working 7 days a week. I'm going to go to every Jewish group and deliver this message. And the Jewish community itself has to communicate the message.
Yeah.
People in this room have to communicate it. Yes, I get the feeling for one group. I get it. But the Jewish community has to understand the threat that they are under.
Same New Yorkers are concerned about. Safety, which you addressed. However, you were behind the state bail reform statutes, always feel free to correct, and look what happened to our city. And as you said, no arrests, no prosecutions, no incarceration. Affordability. You pushed through congestion pricing. People like me and your mother and other people who live in the zone have to pay $9 every time we want to go to our house. $9. It's costing me a fortune, and other people can afford it less. This is suppressing business. People are suffering because people don't want to come in, and restaurants and stores, everybody's suffering because of it. Cabs that used to cost me $7. The other day, I went from my home to my office, it cost me $21.50. And I'm sure not taking the subway because I feel like I'm risking my life if I take the subway. Groceries have skyrocketed. And then, of course, there's all of the costs involved to take care of all the 400,000 illegal immigrants that we have welcomed into our city and everywhere. Education. Left-wing radical indoctrination in our public schools, rampant anti-Semitism in CUNY, and our tax dollars are paying for it, and nobody's putting a stop to it. I want to know if you changed your campaign managers, and not funny, I'm serious, and last but not least, anyone in New York City who is here, you must register to vote if you're not already registered, and you must vote. You must vote.
When you use my mother against me. Did you talk to my mother before?
My niece lives in her building, right now.
Yes, I knew it was a connection. My mother, he's a shrewd. Congestion pricing. Congestion pricing I passed 6 years ago. maybe more, maybe 7 years ago. When they went to, and then it went into the federal bureaucracy and disappeared. The idea behind congestion pricing was we will fix the subways, clean the subways, make the subways safe, so it's a real viable alternative, and then congestion pricing to fund more repairs to the subways. That was the idea 6, 7 years ago. When they went to put it in this year, I opposed it. I said, for 2 reasons. One, the subways are not a viable alternative. Now you're putting a gun to a person's head. Either pay me the money or get into the subway and risk your life. So we didn't make the city's subway safe. They're much worse than they were. And number 2, I opposed it because the city is teetering, right? We're losing people. A lot of people are not coming in. They're going to stay home. They're going to do everything by Zoom. We're only at 60% of the people back in offices. We don't want to create another obstacle to stay home. This is the worst time to do it. When we're trying to seduce people to come back into New York, you want to say, and by the way, we're going to jack up the tolls. So I opposed putting it in place now. And they put it in place anyway. But the cities are not safe. By the way, on the subways are not safe. On the subways, what I would do is this. The subways are run by the MTA. I know the MTA very well. The MTA was put together by Governor Nelson Rockefeller to take power away from Moses. It is the bureaucracy of all bureaucracies. It is a labyrinth. It has the Long Island Railroad. It has Metro North. It's just, there's a board of like 27 people who you never met. It's impossible and it's slow. The delays, 2nd Avenue subway, I completed. The way I completed it was, but it's indicative of the MTA. It had been delayed for literally decades. And they came in again and they said, we needed another extension. I said, no, no more. Bring in all the contractors. And all the contractors came in. Basically, I said to the contractors, if you're going to get another delay, if you're going to miss a deadline, I'm going to fire all of you. And then I took over control of the project. I went down to the 2nd Avenue subway 3 times a week. I would go every night on my way home. I basically was the project manager. That's how the 2nd Avenue subway got done. But I want New York City to take control of the New York City subway system from the MTA. There is no reason why this, you go to countries around the world, you get on the subway, it's a pleasure. You take our subway, you take your life in your hands. People on the platforms, they stand with the back against the wall, right? God forbid you go anywhere near the track, right? Why? Right, you can't figure out how to. Also, you know, we're suffering from a sense that we're accepting the incompetence that we are surrounded with. We are accepting the incompetence. Why can't you figure out how to clean the damn subway? Why does it have to stink? Why do you have to have homeless people on the subways and on the train stations? God didn't put them there. It's not in the Old Testament, there shall be homeless people on every train and every station. During COVID, think about this, every night, every train was emptied of every homeless person, every station emptied of every homeless person, and we washed down every train, every station, every night during COVID. Because at that time, they thought COVID could be, the greatest wisdom was that it could be transferred by touch. Remember when we went through that phase? So nobody would get on the subways because they were afraid it was going to be by touch. So I found companies, they came with this special solvent that virucidal was going to kill the viruses. $5 million more. We got the lemon scented beer cider, so everything smelled like this terrible lemon smell. But we cleaned every train, we cleaned every station every night, every homeless person out of the station. And then you can bring them to a shelter, get them the help they need. These things are all possible. It is doable. New Yorkers are great. My sister Madeline is here. New Yorkers are great because we come from great stock. We come from people who defied all the odds, who came here because they were survivors, because they were searching for another life. They went to a land they didn't know, they didn't speak the language, but they were going to make it work. That's the DNA we have in our blood. And that's who we are. And we have to remember that, right? In the midst of the Great Depression, we built the Empire State Building in 1 year. 1 year, we built the Empire State Building. Now we can't do a permit in 4 years. We have to remember what we're capable of. LaGuardia Airport, we lived with that hellhole for decades. Oh, you can't do it, you can't do it, you can't do it. I did it in 4 years. Tappan Zee Bridge is falling down for 40 years. It's falling down, it's falling down, it's falling down. But you can't build a new one. It's the Hudson River. Everybody will get mad. We built a new Tappan Zee Bridge, new Moynihan train hall, 2nd Avenue subway, new Kosciuszko Bridge, new Shirley Chisholm Park, passed marriage equality first in the United States, free college tuition. We can do these things. We can do these things. We just have to demand more and believe more and not be stupid. What Mamdani is talking about, these are stupid ideas. He's a smart guy, and it may take a smart guy to come up with stupid ideas, but these are stupid ideas. And we have to be smart.
Jerusalem Post, just a few weeks ago, publicized Mamdani sponsors a bill that would ban Jewish nonprofits from raising money in New York, like United Hatzalah. So my name is Eli Beer. I live in Jerusalem. I'm actually a New Yorker originally. And my father grew up here on the Lower East Side. And when I read that, I was remembering all the things that New York did for nonprofits in Israel, and especially this synagogue. The Hamptons Synagogue, Rabbi Schneier, raised probably hundreds of millions of dollars over the years for Israel. United Hatzalah received 81 ambucycles, these motorcycle ambulances, to go save lives of Jews and Muslims and Christians and Druze in Israel. We have volunteers who respond with these motorcycles, paramedics, within 90 seconds to every emergency throughout Israel. And we, as an organization, depend on support coming from our Jewish brothers and sisters, and also non-Jewish. And hearing this from Mamdani should wake up everyone here. And I want to offer you, as potential mayor of New York City, I started this organization when I was 16 years old. We have 8,000 volunteers who respond with these ambucycles and arrive to scenes of 90 seconds. In New York, because of the traffic, it takes a lot more than 90 seconds to save someone's life. And as you know, every second counts. And if the child is choking, you have 2 or 3 minutes to save that child. I want to offer you, with the hospice of the rabbi and the support of the community, that if you become mayor, we will start United Hatzalah in New York City for the whole city. Now they have Hatzalah in every Jewish community in New York. Hatzalah is a great organization in New York City for the Orthodox communities mostly. But I want to offer to start this for the entire city. 90-second response. They have thousands of Americans, incredible young people, who are not communists, who would like to volunteer and save lives. And I would love to do that with your mayor.
What does it mean for him to be anti-Israel? Oh, it means he's anti-Israel's policy against Palestine. That's how they want to interpret anti-Israel. But that's not what he is. This bill that he proposed would take away the not-for-profit status from charities that helped Israel. UJA, your organization. Jen, what was the name of that bill?
Not on my dime.
Not on my dime. New Yorker, not on my dime, not on New Yorkers' dime. No tax deduction for a charity that helps Israel. This is before anything, before the campaign, before anything. I mean, his position has been so clear. And that's why when personally we have to vote, you have to do more than vote. You have to rally the Jewish community in a way you've never rallied it before. Because you have to counter a group within the Jewish community, let's be honest, that is, quote unquote, pro-Palestinian. They happen to be young. I think they happen not to appreciate the history, but they are young and active, and they voted, and they're going to vote again. And this statement is going to be a statement heard around the country. You elect the mayor of New York City who is anti-Israel, you're going to see the support for Israel all across the country drop. Because every Democratic politician is going to say, even in New York? Even in New York? This happened? And they're all going to fold like a cheap suit. Like you'll see them fall like dominoes. Remember the question before, how can New York Jewish politicians take the position? You elect this guy, you'll see the Democrats fall across the nation. Like dominoes fall.
You didn't ask
All right.
Jewish people are very divided. It's very, very nuanced and it's very complicated. Nobody is going to convince the people who are anti-Israel to not vote for Mamdani. The 50% of the Jews who voted are going to still vote for him, no matter what is said to them. When Moses came to Egypt to take out the Jewish people, there were Jews who stayed in Egypt, and we don't talk about them on Passover, but they stayed there, and the other Jews left. There are Jews who told FDR to send the boats back. Okay, Rabbi Stephen Wise told FDR, who's his advisor, he said, send the boats back to Europe. And the Jews went back. They were not allowed to land on the shores of the United States, and they were sent back to Europe to die. Okay, this is our history. There are Jews who just are not going to be with us here, and I don't believe that there is a point of even trying to get them to understand our perspective. They're anti-Israel, and they're going to be anti-Israel. The point is what you said, which is take the Jews who didn't come out to vote, who are pro-Israel, to get them voter registration and getting them out and making sure they actually come to the polls to physically do it. But going and talking against Mamdani about his Israel stance, I think in my opinion, it's just at this point, they know already. They know, and to push the issue on it is not necessarily going to get the Jewish vote. And
I still want to make the argument with this under 30 group because they have to understand the context and the history that is behind this. When I say all they know is TikTok, it's like, and by the way, they graduated from great schools. I don't know how they were indoctrinated.
Depends how you define great.
Yeah, but I'm not going to give up trying to convince them. That goes forward. But I also agree, Stephanie, that in many ways it's a waste of time because I'm not going to change their vote in this election. I'm not going to change their mind.
And Andrew,
Fine, but I do need, well, you're right, the other 50% has to vote like 100%, right? That's what happened here. The other 50% were not as energized, were not as mobilized, were not volunteering, were not donating, were not voting. And that is a shanda, and that's what I need help with.
Andrew, we also need a little context here. 50% of the New York Jewish community is not anti-Israel. As the governor said, there was only a limited number that came out to vote in June. In no way does that reflect the overwhelming majority of New York Jews that are pro-Israel. And I want to also, I need to say this, and we witness here at the Hamptons Synagogue, I've seen this across New York, if there's been any silver lining, I even hate to use that term, but I will say silver lining to the war that Israel has fought, that we have seen across the board Jews come out of the woodworks, identifying themselves with the Jewish community and with the state of Israel.
You said that you can't win mayor of New York City without the Democratic Party, which is about 70%. So one, how are you going to overcome that issue, especially when unfortunately they're supporting the person who won the primary and not the candidate who should be mayor? And the second part of my question is, earlier you mentioned President Trump. Would support or an endorsement for President Trump help or hinder your campaign?
Mayor, I didn't say Democratic Party. I had the support of the Democratic Party. I had all the unions, all the elected officials. Didn't mean anything. 70% are Democrats. Democrats, not Democratic Party. Democrats. I have 400,000 votes in the primary. Mondamiga has 500,000 votes. So I only have to take up 100,000 votes, which is 2% in a much larger universe. So of the 70%, I'm just about, 45% of the 70%. What I was saying is Eric Adams didn't run in the primary because he is not competitive with Democrats, and you can't be competitive in November if 70% aren't going to vote for you, right? That's what I was saying. One of the reasons why Eric Adams is not competitive with the Democrats, they believe he had a corrupt administration, they believe he did a bad job, but then they're irate about the deal he made with Trump. So it is a big negative with the Democrats. And could it help you with the Republicans? Yeah, but they're 15% Republicans, right? It would really damage you with the Democrats. And I believe these Democrats who come out in the general are going to be different than the primary Democrats. The rabbi makes a good point. It's not 50% anti-Israel. We are talking about the voting population, right? I think the voting population that comes out in November is going to be different than the voting population that came out in the primary, which is smaller, more activist. And I believe I can win the Democrats versus Mondamiga in the general. But support of Trump would be a major negative for the
Right, Mark?
The New York Post reported that Mandami had 50,000 volunteers knocking on 1.6 million doors. I'm wondering what your approach to having volunteers will be helping to get out the vote, and thinking about what we as Jewish people can do. I know the last 6 months we've been very active in a number of shuls in Manhattan trying to get out the vote, but we need to do more than that. And I'm thinking, so in New York City, for example, to have building captains in a number of buildings, knocking on doors, that's probably going to help. What if I'm knocking on a door? What's your advice as to what I should be saying to the person? It's going to be really helpful. The other thought I wanted to ask you about is there's one or more platforms that have been established to work on this election. There's the Betsy McCauley and Ray Kelly one, and Hank Scheinkauf, who teaches at the shul, is going to raise another platform. What should the approach to the platforms be? How should they be working together?
I don't know if he had 50,000, but he had young people from across the country. Socialist organization, what they call the Democratic Socialists, is a national organization, right? It's Bernie Sanders, it's AOC, and primarily under 30. He had kids come in from all across the country to volunteer in his campaign. Because for them, it's also like a social activity, right?
Yeah, I don't
They're
know.
on social
I don't
media,
know.
let's
I
meet
don't
at
know.
this
I don't
bar
know.
on Friday night, and we'll have a good time at the bar, and then Saturday we'll go campaigning. and you get a date on Friday night, plus your campaign, so it's like a twofer. But he has that social network. And they were better in the bar on Friday night than they were on Saturday, but he had a lot of volunteers out there. My campaign did not utilize that as well last time. We're changing that, and we're going to do it by geography. Volunteers responsible for a geographic area. You can do this online. You can pick it. You can pick your building. You can pick your block. You can pick your 3 blocks. But organize the volunteers that you're responsible for 72nd Street between 72nd and 3rd, right? If you take your building at 450 72nd Street. Because there are a lot of people who want to get involved, and we want to get that done online. With all these platforms, it gets into legal issues on how you coordinate, if you can coordinate. And usually the answer is you cannot coordinate because of the legality of the structures. But it's not an efficient system because they wind up doing redundant things, but at least they're doing positive things.
What do I say when I knock on the door of somebody?
That on my website, you can have a whole agenda. And by the way, they agree with my agenda, what I want to do, and they agree that I have the experience to do it. And they agree that his agenda is not feasible and makes no sense. But they will agree with you at the door. I didn't get to enough doors in the primary.
All right, we're going to take the...
I believe what went wrong is that the 30-year-olds, the 25-year-olds did not grow up in our golden age. They don't have this background. They see us as old, okay? And so the messaging to them has to be so different than the messaging to us. We can't even message to them as parents. Okay, you've got to get young people around you talking to what's going to happen to their world.
I agree 100%. I agree 100%. I'm going to make that case. He wants to legalize sex workers. Legalize prostitution.
You should.
Yeah, he wants to legalize prostitution.
You should.
What they call sex. They're not prostitutes. They're sex workers. And he wants to legalize sex workers. And that's one of the core positions, male and female sex workers. Yes. That's what, but that's in their socialist charter. And you're right that we have to make this case to young people. You're right, when they see me, they see old, so they are like right away, you don't get it, you don't get it. They don't see me on TikTok, so I don't get it. I got it. I got it also. The way they get it, I got it. And I'm going to have younger people speak to them, and we're doing it. Politically, to win the election, I need you guys. I need you guys as energized as they are. And what they're doing, whether it's 50,000, whatever it is, they bring 5 friends to the poll. Everybody contributes $50. They're on email, they do in social media, they ask their friends to contribute. And they have, to their credit, you know, we've been trying to get young people organized and young people involved in government and politics. They have mobilized young people. Not in a productive way, in my opinion. And the main organizing issue is not just prostitutes and everything else, it's pro-Palestinian. That is what is driving them. And unless you can debunk that in 4 months, we're going to have the same issue. But I need your help.
Annie Bassman.
And you have a voice today, and I believe that it's very important that he does not ignore the youth market, because they have to understand it's not that they're pro-Palestine, they're pro the killing and the murdering and the destruction. They're terrified. They're terrified about Trump. They're terrified about war. They're terrified about global warming. They're terrified about not affordable housing. They're they want a future. And they want to be able to not be ruled by the haves and the have-mores. And there's nobody that's protecting them. And they don't understand the history of the Jews, but they don't really understand that Hamas is using their own people as human shields because they believe if they're murdered, then they'll go to a higher place.
Correct. The messaging of the DSA, which has been a plan in place for over 25 years, indoctrinating students at colleges, at elementary schools, at universities all over the world, we're not going to fight that. That is a message that has been well funded and pushed by everyone in the DSA and everyone, the Democratic Socialist Party. There is no such thing as a Democratic Socialist. You're either a Democrat or a socialist. So combining those words is really just a play on words to try to get people to take their position. Unfortunately, the Democratic Party did not pick up on that, or if they did, there were only a few people and they didn't sound the alarm early enough. This has been a consolidated effort over a course of decades, and we're not going to stop that right now. Right now, the important thing is to focus on the people of New York City who did not vote in the primary election because either they weren't registered, they were registered Republican, Independent, they weren't able to vote, they didn't care, they didn't realize how significant a primary is. We have to focus on those people and get those people out there to the polls to understand Andrew Cuomo's message. Andrew Cuomo's message needs to be one about what he's going to do for the future. We know he built LaGuardia Airport. He did all of these amazing, innovative programs for the city and for the state of New York. But really, what's he going to do next? What is the next thing he's going to do for the future to bring us closer together as a people, bring New York City to make it great? We are a model for the rest of the country. What are these programs? He wants to take homeless people off the street.
Where are they going?
Where are they going? So we need a plan to see where are they going. Mamdani cannot offer that. He is saying free Palestine, free prostitutes, free rent, free everything. That's not a plan. We need a cohesive plan from the experts who know affordable housing, who know how to make this happen. And that is an important message that needs to resonate and it needs to be said, because just focusing on what we've done in the past is great, but the young people of this generation do not know and they do not care and they don't want to know. They see an older person running, they don't understand really the intricacies of everything, and we don't have to teach it to them now. We have 4 months. We don't have to teach it to them. We have to go back and we have to find out, strategize, and think about how we can do this collectively and logistically is extremely important.
So how do we find you and how do we get this message over to our friend here at Cuomo?
So I'm one of the vice presidents of the Lexington Democratic Club on the Upper East Side. We were the only club in Manhattan to condone Mamdani before the primary. The other
condemn or condone?
Condemn him before the primary. It was important to me. I wrote a statement condemning him. It was voted on. It won by 1 vote. That's what goes to show in the Democratic Party what's happening now. It won by 1 vote, and our club is not going to turn into a DSA club. If the DSA wants to have their own club, which they do, our members are happy to join them.
And what does DSA mean?
Democratic Socialists of America. They're basically communists.
Okay.
They're about 15, 20 years ago, they realized that they weren't winning on an independent line anymore. So they infiltrated the Democratic Party in order to be able to win in primaries. So they started running people. And Mamdani could have been a sacrificial lamb to run him. They didn't actually think he was going to win. But now they've gotten to the point where they are winning. The next thing is the president, our senator, whatever it is.
But he had a message that resonated with them because they're frustrated and they're frightened.
Correct. Governor Cuomo needs a message. He needs to come out with a specific message on what he's going to do.
I told him he has to sue them. He has to make them sue.
It's not going to be on anti-Mamdani.
No, it has to be soothing. What are we doing? What's the solution? How can we help? We hear you.